Last episode, a tulip crashed an economy. This time, it was a company, a government, and the smartest man who ever lived. And the result was somehow even worse. Isaac Newton, the man who discovered gravity, invented calculus, laid the foundations of modern physics. In 1720, he invested in the South Sea Company, lost 20,000 pounds, the equivalent of several $1 million today, and afterward, he reportedly said, I can calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. The year is 1711. Britain is exhausted from war with France. The national debt is enormous. The government needs a solution. Enter the South Sea Company, a private corporation given exclusive rights to trade with Spanish colonies in South America. In exchange, it would absorb a significant portion of Britain's national debt. The trade monopoly sounded extraordinary. There was just one problem. Spain controlled those colonies, and Spain had no intention of giving Britain meaningful trading rights. The South Sea Company had almost no real business. What it had was a story. And in financial markets, a convincing story is worth more than reality. Between January and August 1720, South Sea Company shares rose by over 1,000% in 8 months, with almost no actual trade occurring. Here is what was actually happening behind the scenes. The South Sea Company was bribing members of Parliament with discounted shares. The king himself, George I, was a shareholder and patron. Company directors were spreading false rumors about secret trade agreements with Spain, about ships loaded with silver arriving from South America, about profits too large to calculate. None of it was true. But the price kept rising. And rising prices attracted more buyers. More buyers pushed prices higher still. This is the same mechanism as the tulip mania, 80 years later. Same psychology, different asset, different century. At the peak in August 1720, South Sea Company shares traded at 1,000 pounds each. They had started the year at 128. Then, in September 1720, the directors started selling their own shares. And the market realized nobody was left to buy. Within weeks, shares collapsed from 1,000 pounds to under 100. Thousands of British families were ruined overnight. Merchants, aristocrats, members of parliament, military officers, widows who had invested their only savings. The political fallout was catastrophic. Several government ministers faced imprisonment. The South Sea Company's directors had their assets seized by Parliament, and Isaac Newton, who had sold his shares early at a profit, then bought back in at the peak, lost his fortune, and refused to speak about it for the rest of his life. Intelligence is no protection against collective mania. Newton understood the laws of the universe. He did not understand that markets run on emotion, not physics. But the South Sea bubble left behind something that changed financial history forever. In the aftermath, the British Parliament passed the Bubble Act of 1720, one of the world's first pieces of financial regulation. It restricted the formation of joint stock companies without royal charter, essentially regulating speculative corporate structures for the first time in history. The South Sea bubble didn't just destroy wealth. It forced governments to ask a question they had never seriously asked before. What is the state's responsibility when private financial mania destroys public welfare? That question produced the first financial regulators, the first disclosure requirements, the first legal frameworks around corporate fraud. Every financial regulatory body that exists today traces its intellectual lineage to the wreckage of the South Sea bubble. The disaster built the system designed to prevent the next one. It didn't work. But that is a story for the next episode. Isaac Newton lost his fortune to a company that barely existed. A king endorsed it. A parliament was bribed by it. An entire nation believed in it. And when it collapsed, the world built its first financial rule book from the rubble. The Bubble series continues. Episode 3 goes to 1929, where the same pattern returns at a scale that shook the entire world. Subscribe and watch what happens when humanity forgets what it already learned.